Hello and welcome to our May KTN webcast. And I want to give a shout out to all of our regular attendees around the world and those of you who turn up again and again, but also our new participants. Welcome to our brand new training content that we have to share with you today, how to train your team to deliver epic hospitality. So if you're a leader, a manager, I hope that you will find good takeaways that are actionable to actually use in your own training sessions. If you are a frontline service provider, I hope to inspire you and help you rise to be the best you can be and also to be a great leader. As always, we want to thank and give a shout out to our sponsors who for 2.5 years now since we started the KTN webcast series have been our financial supporters that allow us to pull time off of my travel schedule to create the content, to deliver this training to you from our offices here in Miami, Florida area, and also to promote it and help get the word out around the world. That's how many of you found us through the advertising that we do through various lodging industry and tourism magazines or our LinkedIn ads. So thank you, Track, a TravelNet solution, which provides a property management system for vacation rental companies, condo hotels, and also Track Pulse, a call recording and lead tracking system for call centers. Also Travel Outlook, the premier hotel call center, which not only takes live calls, but has a net and AI-powered a digital assistant to virtual assistant to field guest service calls and lead the humans to do what they do best. So as always, a few shout outs to all of our participants today around the world as we're waiting for the last of you to join us live. You know, our live participation is really amazing. If you are attending live, remember, if you're not able to attend live in future webcasts, you can always sign up, and everybody who signs up does receive the recording. But when we look at our numbers, we approach usually over 50% live. So despite the differences of time zones, but shout outs today. First of all, since we have the globe up here, let's give some shout outs to our international attendees today. Our count today is 5 continents attending. We have Naveen from Suwaqif, Qatar. Thank you for joining us. We have Crown Resorts in the house, kind of in the house. From Australia, Maria, Director of Sales, Corporate Director of Sales, by the way, from Crown Resorts of Australia. We have Keith from B&B Host, Glasgow, Scotland. Hello to you. Oh, this was a really nice one. You know, Julia and I, our marketing coordinator, we love to look up the hotel domains of our new attendees. And we noticed you, Olympic Spa Hotel in Marta, Front Office Disruptor, a great title. In Italy and on the Alps of Italy. I'll be getting close to there with Kathy Cook when we go fly into Milan and drive over to Croatia. Beautiful part of Italy. We have the Regal Group, Regal Hospitality. We have Ilam, who I just met yesterday, who's the owner of Regal Hospitality, providing hospitality training in Ghana. And I hope to meet you in person, Ilam. It was wonderful connecting with you yesterday. Maybe one day we'll team up and do some hospitality training there. The Bay Gardens Resort, St. Lucia and Nice, the commercial director, very impressive. We have Sail Rock in the Caicos, Laverne, reservation manager. Vela Resorts in Mexico, a beautiful resort company, by the way, with beautiful resorts. Jareth, QA manager. Aldrine from the Philippines, our shout out to you and our other Asian participants. A lot of regulars today, Prime Resorts, Prime Vacations, Jackie Rogers, training manager. Thank you for looking at our Heart of Hospitality for additional participants. We hope to be working with you again. Sandy Lane, Barbados, Teresa, one of our clients. Other clients, Comfort Inn, Chicotique, Michelle, we see you almost every webcast, and also your team. Thank you for being a coaching client with us as well. Vail Resort Sierra, I think you joined us for a previous sales webcast. Thank you for joining Epic today. Nick from the Biltmore, the amazing Biltmore, Miami. Mission Point, another client, should be about grand opening time, up in Mackinac Island, just above the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. Lauren, Christina from the Lauren in Austin, again, thank you for coming out. Carnegie Hotel Tennessee, Joel, and Karima from Edmonton, Canada. Nice to see you again. Well, shout outs are done. We are ready to jump into our presentation today on the title Epic Hospitality. Now, the word epic is used quite often these days in many different concepts, many different ways and connotations. But let's also look at how this word has become the name of things. The word epic is the name of the new, I believe, opening this month, Epic Universe at Universal Studios, the new theme park there. Actually, kind of interested in visiting that. Epic Games for our gamers. We have Epic. If you have young children, Epic is a website that provides reading resources for young children. Epic, where's my skiers out there? The Epic Ski Pass giving you access. But today we're going to look at the word epic in a little bit different way. And when we go through EPIC as our acronym, I hope you will enjoy the concepts I'm going to share with you and embrace these concepts because I believe they're foundational to creating memorable guest experiences for one, but also to having a lot more fun during our work life. In a lot of our webcasts, we talk about if you ever sit down and calculate how many hours you spend with your work family versus how many hours you spend with your actual real family, you're probably going to find out that actually our work fam is where we spend the most time. Why not make the best of it? Unless you win that lottery, good luck on that. Also, Epic Hospitality concepts will help you be a happier person. I believe so anyway. And creating a better world for all. Now, I've been doing, this is actually the start. This month, May 1st, I started my 37th year of hospitality training. I started the company in my late 20s, and I've traveled around every single year to approximately 70 different hotels, resorts, conference centers, vacation home rental companies. One of the best comments I got was from a second generation hospitality industry person, Helena Sideris, the daughter of a very dear friend, Rhonda Sideris, who owns Park City Lodging. And I got this review November of 2023, and Helena, I've never forgot the words you said. I had my first training years ago, and things have stuck with me to this day about how to be a steward for hospitality in this world, and simply how to extend heartfelt compassion and kindness. The world is full of so much cynicism and stress that the opportunities to reinvigorate and rejuvenate the spirit of hospitality are priceless. Helena, this made me so happy, especially made me happy when you shared the story that day back in November of 2023. Helena shared a story, and I hope I get this right, but there was a very difficult guest who, kind of ratcheted up the leadership pole and, escalated the call and I don't know exactly what the concern was, but had a major complaint, basically yelling, screaming, shouting at dear Helena. And after they actually stayed, at the end of the call, Helena said, I'd like to meet you. When they actually met, Helena made a connection with this guest and offered to take her snowshoeing in Park City. So talk about flipping the vibe, which we've covered a lot. We're actually going to cover that next month on Conquering Complaints Confidently. But taking hospitality outside of the building, outside of your work environment into the world itself is really a great mission of Epic Hospitality. Now, some people call these soft skills. If you read my article about the fluff is everything, a lot of people demean hospitality training. They say, oh, it's just fluff. It's like soft skills. I almost take that as an insult, soft skills. I prefer to call these concepts of hospitality and guest excellence training hard skills, because they teach the thing which we need possibly the most in the world today, definitely the most in the hospitality business, whether you're in operations, rooms, property maintenance, food and beverage. We need hard skills today because I believe anyway that these skills help prevent a disease that is running rampant in the hospitality industry and running rampant in the world today, more contagious than the coronavirus, and that is heart failure. And heart failure is the leading cause of lost business. If you take and read reviews at Google, TripAdvisor, or any of the OTAs, you know, they'll complain about the room, they'll complain about the food, they'll complain about the location, they might complain about cleanliness. But what really is the kicker between those 1-star reviews is the people parts that fail. And alternatively, when you read the 5-star reviews, you will read, you know, the food was good, the room was nice, the view was good, but the people were amazing. People make the difference. So let us get into Epic Hospitality. Are you ready? As we go through our acronym today. So E in Epic is empathy. And empathy is being able to relate to and possibly feel the emotional situations that others are experiencing. Now, I say possibly feel because, you know, sometimes depending on where you work, you might have a job which, if you actually feel what others are going through every day, it can actually be very draining. So maybe really a word compassion is a better fit, but then it will be kipic. I don't know, that wouldn't work too well. But empathy is how we want to imagine the emotional situations others are going through. So to understand, we don't have to actually feel what they feel, but we want to understand what they feel. And I call this rehumanizing the strangers we call guests. Too often in our industry, we literally dehumanize the guest. And you think about the travel experience itself is already dehumanizing. You know, when I leave to go to the airport on any given morning on any of my 70 days of training, usually about 6 times a month I'm heading out to train 6 hotels. It's about 3 weeks out of 4. And I do sometimes 2 hotels a week or 2 tourism companies a week. But, you know, I become, first of all, a number. You know, first of all, I'm a pickup at my address for an Uber driver. Then I get dropped off. I become a seat number on the flight attendant. I become a space number at the rental car counter. Okay, A18. I check into a hotel. I become a room number. 1401 wants more towels. 301 needs more coffee pads. I go to a restaurant. I'm table 9. And we actually dehumanize the guest in this process. What we want to focus on is unmasking those guests and rehumanizing them. And that requires empathy. Now, usually in training, including our own training here at Kennedy Training Network, we use the word empathy when we're talking about service recovery. In fact, we have the EARS model, if you've been with me for other webcasts. Empathize, apologize, resolve, and make sure they are satisfied. Be all ears. Okay, but today in Epic, I want us to go outside of the context of service recovery. In Epic Hospitality, I want us also to remember to empathize and relate to the many, many, many joyful moments of the guest experience. Now, of course, it depends on what type of hotel you're working at. In early June, I will be going to train at the Helmsley Guest Facility connected to the New York Presbyterian Hospital Complex. It is a guest facility, a nonprofit built to assist and house the people that are either getting major procedures, treatments, surgeries done at New York Presbyterian and also Sloan Kettering Cancer Center and 2 other major hospitals, or housing their family. Okay, so not really a joyful experience. But many of you, especially resorts, city center hotels on the weekends, you have guests who are celebrating some of life's most joyful moments. So whether it's the pain of pushing someone in a wheelchair down the hall to go in for surgery in New York City, or the joy of welcoming them to Caicos or St. Lucia or Italy for their honeymoon, being able to relate to them. And when you have empathy, we relate to strangers on a deeper level. I love this quote from one of my favorite authors, Brian K. Weiss, who is a very highly skilled in the field of psychiatry. In fact, he ran the Mount Sinai Medical Center before writing a series of books, starting with Many Lives, Many Masters. I love this quote. When you look into the eyes of another, any other, and you see your own soul looking back at you, then you will know you've achieved a higher level of consciousness. So when we empathize, we slow down, we make human connections. We remember it's not the next guest in line, it's not table 32, it's not room 301. There's actually a real live human being enjoying a very memorable travel experience or a very trying emotional experience, regardless of what's going on. So to help explain this concept, empathy is something we can sometimes grow and nurture throughout our own life experiences. In a minute, I'm going to talk about how, even very young people, we can develop empathy. And some people are born with more empathy than others. If you have a family, you probably have people on all sides of the equation here. Some of us are more empathetic than others. But for me, I want to share a story with you about how I developed empathy for a certain situation. Now, this particular photo is of me in the early 1990s in the era of traveling with, oh yes, flip charts. And back then we wore ties. Okay, I thought that was a pretty cool tie. I think it might have been a Jerry Garcia tie, but I would carry a flip chart and overhead, and I traveled around, and I was, as I am today, doing approximately 6 days of training a month, approximately 70 days of training a year. I was on a lot of airplanes. Now, the one good thing about flying a lot is that you get higher status frequently with the airlines, and you get to board early. Oftentimes in an exit row seat, occasionally they upgrade you to first class. So I'm pretty much always the first guy on that plane, as I was back in the early 90s. But back then, I have to admit something. I really didn't like babies. Now, I had 6 nieces and nephews, and I loved them dearly from the day they were born, and I held them, and I was like, cute baby. But for me, babies just wasn't the thing. So here I am, early boarding in my aisle seat, and the mom and the dad, or the parents, dad and dad, mom and mom, walking down the aisle, and they got that little baby, and that little baby's making eye contact. Everyone's going, "Hi, baby. What's your name, baby?" Invariably, I don't know, maybe it was my karma, maybe it was destiny. I would be going, "No, no, no, not today. Yes." Mom with a little baby would be sitting in the middle seat right next to me. Now, if it was a morning flight, I'd be thinking, why is a parent traveling with a child in the morning why don't they wait till later in the day when they're better rested? If I'm at night, I'm thinking, why would you travel with the baby at night when they're cranky? Plane takes off. What does every baby do? If you've ever flown with any baby everywhere, whether it was your baby or someone else's, they start wailing, that little baby cry. I had no idea why they did this. I thought they were just annoying babies. Funny how life is. Well, it took me a while, but at age 36, my wonderful daughter Julia arrived, and at age 37 and a half arrived my son Adam. And suddenly I became the guy traveling with the baby on an airplane. It was kind of a humbling experience. Well, and my children were wonderful kids then, as they are now. But traveling with children can sometimes make you a little humble. I remember the time Julia was probably 2 years old, about the time, we had two of them 18 months apart, where we had to get the second seat. And I was sitting by my daughter, and mom was sitting by my son. And for some reason, my little well-behaved daughter decided that when the plane was descending, she was not going to sit down. The flight attendant was like, "You need to make that child sit down." But my daughter wanted to stand up. I literally had to fold her legs, hold her down, and buckle her in. I remember the time I started a triple connection flight, Fort Lauderdale to Atlanta to LA to Honolulu. 18 hours of travel. About 30 minutes after takeoff, my son projectile vomited all over my shoes. Yes, it was a little humbling. And when the baby takes off and they started crying, I knew why it was, because the pressure on the plane. So even now today, I'm on the plane sitting in the aisle seat. Here comes the parent down the aisle with a little baby. Now I'm the one going, hi, baby, what's your name? Honestly, I sometimes kind of hope they sit next to me. And they do, they sit down. And especially if it's a first time parent and the plane takes off and the baby starts crying, I know what to do. I say, Mom, experienced father here in aisle 21E. I know what to do. Can I hold your child for a moment? Do you have any Benadryl down in that bag, Mom? And I take the child and I go, oh, just kidding. I wouldn't really administer that many drops of Benadryl, okay? But you know, it does kind of make them sleep. But the point is, when you've lived it, when you've done it, we can empathize. But what I encourage you to do today is to come out of your own space, come out of your own head and think about what it must be like on the other side of the desk, the other side of the phone call, the other side of the guest room door, the other side of the text message exchange. Do you know what they do to train staff in the senior housing business? I thought this was interesting. A few years back, quite a few years back, I had a chance to train several senior housing complexes, not just assisted living, but continuous care. And one of the things they do, I wish we could do this in our business, but to help people understand what it's like to be age 80, 85, 90, 95, they have the staff go through experiential training, putting corn kernels in their shoes, under their socks. This is for the staff now, putting a little bit of Vaseline over their glasses, putting earplugs in and winter gloves on them and say, okay, now spend the next hour walking around this community. Now, I wish we could do that. You know, we'd have to take our staff and put them on airplanes and wake them up at 4 in the morning to catch a 7 a.m. flight, to run for their connection, to have no food, to be seated next to annoying, overly sharing passengers, to get to the rental car and the reservation is canceled or they upgrade you to the minivan, which you really didn't want a minivan. But what we can do in leaders, we can help people become more empathetic through training games. Here's a few we've done at KTN. Create a story behind the guest. Find pictures of random travelers that look like your guests, either magazine or online, or from your website, and then pass them out at meetings. Have your staff create a fictional story behind what those travel plans may be when they're visiting you, and also all the things that could go wrong before they arrive. Okay. Or also, yes, story bingo. If you work at a resort, you know, have a bingo card, honeymoon couple, 10th anniversary, first time with the baby, last trip with the children before they go to college, bring in grandma, first time leaving the United States or for your country, and get anything you can do to get us out of our own heads and thinking about the guest experiences. So empathy powers intuition, which allows us to anticipate the needs of others before they become requests. But first, before we use ambition, intuition, we first have to be fully present. Presence means keeping your mind focused on the current time, the current space within your immediate vicinity. And having presence today is increasingly a challenge in the world we live in, with all of the distractions that we have. Being genuinely present with other humans has always been a challenge, but today we have what I call the TikTokization. I don't know if that's a real word. TikTokization of our brains. It's even harder. And it's not just TikTok. Some of us on Facebook, I think the older generation took over Facebook. We watch Facebook Reels, and you find yourself scrolling down those Reels, and they all last about, 6 to 10 seconds. It's training our brain to have that about that level of attention span. We make fun of our kids for being on their phones, and yet we whip our phone out when we're at dinner with our loved ones. I think that's called flubbing. A meme I recently encountered said it best. It said, remember when the phone was attached to the wall and people were free. Think about that one for a minute. We are chained to our phones. We're becoming addicted to the adrenaline rush of likes. We're scrolling for entertainment. People walk down the street on their phones. Being present is really, really hard to do. And these phones have changed our society in some ways for good. But if we let the phone control us, we're no longer free. I go running most evenings in my neighborhood. When I travel, that's my one guilty pleasure, is running after I'm done with email in the evenings. But especially when I'm home in my neighborhood, I see so many people walking their dog, and I have to tell you, I feel sorry for those dogs walked by owners who are yakking on the phone instead of being present with their puppies. And I see children, babies in carriages being pushed by parents who are literally watching the videos instead of interacting with their child and the world. Look, a butterfly. Look, a birdie. Instead, they're pushing their carriage and they're going, oh, yeah. Or they're talking on the phone. Be present. What I feel even worse for is the toddlers whose parents have plugged them into their own device while they're pushing the carriage. Now, I have to admit, when my kids were little, I had a BlackBerry, and that BlackBerry had actually it's a flip phone. I think it was after my BlackBerry. When you opened it, there was an eagle flying. When they would cry, I'd hand them the flip phone to open. But to give a child a device when they're not even able to talk yet, what are we doing to people's brains? One of our dear friends came to visit us from Germany. It's a very different world in Germany. I find Europeans, especially Germany, are present with you. I took her to Disney World for the first time. We went to Magic Kingdom. We went to Cosmic Rays Cafe, if you've ever been there. It's a wonderful place to have lunch. There's so much going on. In front of us was young parents with a young child about this age. The child had a tablet, and my friend from Germany said, there's not enough stimulation here. You got to give your kid a tablet. This is not normal, folks. We're rewiring our brain to be somewhere else. Bring it back and be present to have epic hospitality. Now, fortunately, I've been grateful, especially the last few years, to travel more and more around the world. And oftentimes I go to countries that those of us from the United States and a lot of the world might consider the poor countries. But I wonder if that's really true, because what I find there, people are rich with happiness, despite their lack of devices and the things we feel like we need. I truly feel they're in presence when you engage with them on the street or in the market, when you make those connections. You feel the joy of their daily life. So how do we become more present? I call this loop it back listening. If you're with me for our sales training, for the catering sales training that we did, if you're with me for the reservation sales training, if you're with me for our hotel group and event sales training, we talk a lot about this. And all that means is to slow down, be present. And when a guest makes a comment, and this is the context of hospitality here, not the context of hotel sales, catering sales, but the concept is the same. When a guest makes a comment or remark, rather than rushing on as we do in the United States, very good, how are you doing? Good, that's good. What brings you in? Good, very good. Actually, be present. Just pause for a moment, look back whatever they said, and then be silent. Just stay there. And that, when they share the full story, which makes it easier to connect. So let me share with you some examples. Staff. So what brings you to the hotel? Oh, just a vacation. Very good. Enjoy your vacation. Here's your key. What brings you to the hotel? Just a vacation. Oh, well, vacation sounds fun. Actually, it's our first one since my wife completed her chemotherapy this past year. Congratulations. What brings you to the hotel? Oh, just here for a few days on business. Very good. Here's your room. Have a good stay. Next guest. Well, I hope you have at least a little free time during your stay to enjoy the city. Actually, my old roommate from college lives nearby, so I'm staying an extra day to catch up with her. Now we have a chance to give a local area recommendation or just simply be present and share the joy of the reunion with an old friend. Loop it back, slow down, have empathy, be present. Just as we go to the gym to build our physical muscles by using them, so too can we build our muscle, our more spiritual muscle of being present by using it. Quiet your mind, slow down, be silent, and just listen. Now, maybe you go to meditation class, which is not a bad idea, or do yoga, or for me, it's when I run and I get in the beat of the music in my earbuds. But be silent and listen. Now, isn't it ironic that the same letters that make up the word silence also make up the word listen? Because they go together. Let's look at the I in EPIC. The I in EPIC stands for intuition. Intuition is being able to understand a person's situation and their feelings about their circumstances without overthinking it. Intuition allows us to do something way more important than handling over a bottle of cold water on a hot day. And this is something, if you work at a brand that has a loyalty program, you know this has become a thing. And I don't want to pick on any brands. Oh, Hilton, Marriott, probably IHG and Accor. Welcome, Mr. Kennedy. Thank you for being a loyal Bond Boy honors member, and here's your free water. Okay, that's good, especially on a hot day and the water is cold. But what is way more important is using your intuition to not only recognize their physical needs, but also recognize their unspoken emotional needs and share them a little bit of kindness and what I call lowercase l love. Not romantic love, but love in the sense of kama muta, which we've covered in previous webcasts. So intuition is a byproduct of being present enough to observe their verbal cues. Now, some people are really good at having intuition to read verbal cues. I think personally, it comes from being around people. So those of you who are hourly workers and you're here attending today as a bartender or a reservation agent or front desk or maintenance or you think you are just a bell person, you are actually learning a lot about people. And when we look back on the jobs that we have, someday you may realize how much you're learning right now in your hourly job. Out of all the jobs I had, the job that I had in the hotel business for the longest was being a bellboy. Before that, I worked for my parents in my mom's craft shop for 11 years. The years spent back then, I thought, oh, I'm only just a bellboy. All I'm doing is carrying bags. But I realized later that I learned to talk to people from around the world from all different age groups. And that helps you develop intuition. But even if you're only just starting your career, even if you're training people who are only just starting their career, let's get them thinking about paying attention to those nonverbal communications. This is a great list from verywellmind.com. If you're a manager, I recommend you visit their site. Facial expressions, gestures, paralinguistics. This is how loud they're talking or how soft they're talking. Also, tone of voice. The body language people put out. I read an article yesterday about body language. When someone crosses their legs with the foot towards you, that means they're listening. When someone crosses their leg with the foot away from you, that means they do not buy in, they're not agreeing, they're not connecting with you. Okay. So the obvious things of body language. I Traveled around the world. I've never paid a hotel destination fee. Proxemics, how close they are to your personal space. Eye gaze. Haptics, I didn't know what that was. Apparently that means touch. Well, hopefully we don't touch our guests. We shouldn't be touching our guests normally, but we do shake hands, okay? And how a person shakes hands may be a connection, and also appearance. So pay attention to the nonverbals. That is part of intuition. Train your staff to think about that. Remember also your guests are using their intuition to read your nonverbals. So be aware of the unspoken messages you're sending to them. All the things we just talked about, crossing the legs toward, not away. Do not react to a guest like this or this. And having open body language and the tone of voice that we share. Let's move on to C. Our last letter in EPIC is C for connection. So, connection has many different definitions in the English language, especially American English. So in order to talk about human connection, I decided to enlist the help of Google AI. Perfect place to go. What is the definition of human connection? I asked Gemini. And according to the AI Gemini, human connection refers to the feeling of belonging, sharing understanding, emotional resonance experience when we interact with others. Human connection is the result of empathy, presence, intuition leads to connection. Now, sincere connections start with conversations about the most basic shared experiences of humanity. Things that we can all talk about, like the food we eat, the weather we're sharing, the time of day, the day of week. Happy Friday to you. Good evening to you. Good morning to you. It's raining out. Yeah, it's raining. Beautiful day. Yeah, beautiful. These are little ways we can share the humanity in this endless time. We share a small timeline. Think about the timeline of so-called, civilization. I wonder sometimes, 10,000 years, 2000 something AD, and the industrial age is about 125, 130 years. The information age is what, 25 years, 30 years old. And in the sum of all that is this little tiny space on this huge timeline. We are more alike than different. So have connections. Now, in the hospitality industry, there's so many easy ways to foster human connections with guests as long as they're delivered with heart, sincerely. Don't say these if you don't mean it, but commenting on where someone is from when you're speaking with the guest on the phone and you're taking their information, or you're greeting a guest on arrival, or you're serving them across a bar, or you're going to fix something in their room, or you randomly talk to them while they're waiting for their rideshare service, or you're driving them in the hotel van. By the way, where are you from? When they say where they're from, don't just say good. Let's make a follow-up and loop it back. How do you like living there? I've never been there. Wow, you're from. And in my classes, I always have people think of whatever the most boring town they can ever imagine. But to that person that's from there, they will light up and we're all proud of our hometown, okay? So how do you like it there? How long have you lived there? Greeting the children, the pets, if you allow pets, the elderly in the party. Hi, puppy, what's your name? You just won the heart of every pet mom, pet parent out there. Or the elderly. We ignore the elderly in public sometimes. We talk to the caregiver. We talk to the adult child that's with grandma, grandpa, okay, that's in the wheelchair or the walker. Let's talk to those people. Commenting on the sports team logo. Ah, Steelers. Well, actually, I'm a Ravens fan, but I won't hold that against you. Okay. Making those human connections. I love it when people do this, especially when women uplift other women with comments about, oh, I love your earrings. What a nice sweater. This happens a lot to my wife, Kathy. And, of course, it could be because she does have beautiful accessories and she picks such lovely things to wear. But I get it a lot with I used to get it with ties, but now most of us don't wear ties anymore. But people will comment on my class ring. Oh, I love your class ring. I will proudly tell you, this is from the University of Kentucky. I am forever a Kentucky Wildcat. I'm from Lexington, Kentucky. I would love to talk to you about it. It makes that human connection. Sociologists and behavioral scientists have done extensive research on the positive impact of what they call pro-social behaviors, and that refers to actions with the intention to benefit others. I studied general studies was my degree in school, and I studied many different things. I studied organizational communication. I studied sociology. I studied anthropology. But the classes that I took that helped me the most to this day have been psychology. And I, to this very day, love reading research in the field of psychology. I found more and more it's impacting the work that I do, especially in teaching hospitality and sales. It's very, very relevant. So I'm going to share with you some legit research done by people in the field of psychology. I will reference the source, and if you are like me, have a curious mind, you can go and you can read the same information and share it with those of you in your organization as well. So, pro-social behavior refers to the actions intended to benefit others, such as assisting, connecting, welcoming, and comforting. This sounds pretty much like the core mission of any hospitality-related job, isn't it? So, pro-social. I found this research. This is done by Schroeder, Juliana Schroeder, Donald Lyons, Nicholas Epley. They did a lot of research. So this research on pro-social behavior is very hard to do, okay? And so they actually did, this particular research was conducted by how people interact on the commuter trains in the city of London in the United Kingdom. And the context may be different from other worlds, but there's many other references that they're going to cite here of similar work. But I thought this, in fact, Epley has done, I think, the most work in this field. This is not a research like you see published today in a lot of the social media, question the data where it's coming from. I see all the time. 95% of guests prefer to communicate by text. Okay, let's check out the methodology. It's a survey of 100 people conducted by text. So this is actually legit research. What they found was that those who initiate the pro-social actions, that means greeting others, connecting with others, saying hello, starting the conversation, they underestimate the significant positive response of the recipients. So when you pass through the lobby, when guests are waiting, you say, oh, good evening, hello, how are you? How are your travels? Where are you from? I love your earrings. What a cute baby. Oh, you're here for the hospital. I hope things go well for your loved one. And you make those connections. We underestimate how much that means to someone else. The initiators feel that it's the actual phrasing or delivery of their pro-social action. Yeah, I think all the people with the rating services are in this school of thought. They think it's more about the actual words that we say, which is important to be eloquent. But you can say the actual words. Good afternoon, welcome to the hotel. How was your trip in? Very good. Mr. Kennedy, my name is Douglas. I'd be happy to assist you. I just said the script perfectly. Okay. Well, what happens if you only use a transcription service? You don't get the feeling. And what's most important, those experiencing the pro-social actions, they notice more so the authentic, heartfelt feeling that is conveyed. Hospitality is an emotional connection. It's not just about the words we say. And again, we want to say the right words to comply with the inspection service. We don't be like, hey, what's up? Welcome. What you guys doing, right? And you're talking to a group of elderly females. We need to be eloquent, but what's missing very often these days is not the actual words, but the feeling behind those words. That's my experience. So here's some additional research cited by the Lyons, Epley, Schroeder research that I just shared with you. Human beings are inherently social, such that connecting with others, even with complete strangers, reliably increases people's moods. Acting more extroverted in a social setting also increases people's positive mood, even among self-reported introverts, in both laboratory settings and weeks-long field investigations. So you can see, I'll leave this up for a second if you want to do a screen capture. You can read other research from 2020, 2006, 2012, and many different ways this methodology and the population of the study, they find the same things. So if you come into work in a bad mood, what they're saying, be pro-social, be the first to initiate and just start a conversation. You underestimate how the huge impact that has on others. Every comment you make in an elevator or under the porch cochere or passing in the hallway has a huge impact on the lives of others, but also on your happiness as well. As we said in the other webcast, hospitality is a reciprocal exchange, just like shining the light in the mirror in a dark room. When you shine the light in the mirror, the beam reflects back on you. Now, if you want to do more research in this area, you can visit one of the most popular, most highly viewed TED Talks on YouTube. It's the most popular TED Talk, one of the most popular. Over 40 million views the last I saw. Robert Waldinger, who took over the Harvard Happiness Study, started in the 1930s. And what they, a real short overview, they started, researchers started studying people, and it's originally young men or in their early childhood. They followed them to adulthood, and then they picked the research up later. They started including females, family members, and what they routinely have found, consistently rather, have found is that it was not money or fame or fortune or social status that made people be happy. It was the strength of their relationship with their spouse, their life partner, their relationship with their children, their relationship with their immediate and extended family, their relationship with their neighbors. So it's a very powerful TED Talk. The work continues to this day on the Harvard Happiness Project. Now let me share, and you may want to take note of this title because you can actually Google search these entire exact words and you will find the entire article, courtesy of New York Times Magazine, which I am a subscriber of New York Times. They have a lot of human interest stories that I love. How nearly a century of happiness research led to one big finding, and it's a new finding. And this is what caught my eye. I just read this article last week. Sonia Lyubomirsky, oh, I practiced this before the webcast. Lyubomirsky. Now, this woman has a degree from Harvard. She has a doctorate from Stanford. She currently teaches University of California at Riverside, and you can find her article as well. She's quoted, let me go back, she's quoted in the New York Times Magazine. She has her own website, SoniaLyubomirsky.com, and you can follow her as well on social media. I'm going to quote her as she's quoted in the article. That strong marriages and family relationships make people happier? Yes, that's intuitive, Lyubomirsky acknowledges. What she found more surprising was just how effective even having small of connection throughout the day could be for happiness, and how achievable that is if people could only overcome their hesitation to initiate connections. If someone were to ask me, what's the one thing you could do tomorrow to be happier? That's my answer. This is a direct quote now. Have a conversation with someone, or maybe a deeper conversation with someone than you normally have. And so this really sums up what EPIC is all about. When I was putting together the presentation and looking for a conclusion, it occurred to me that EPIC also works backwards. Because to make stronger and better connections, just use your intuition to recognize the reactions that people have. When you focus on being fully present or doing your best to have empathy. Maybe we should name the new class SIPE. Epic hospitality. Now, many of us dream of doing great things in a big way. You know, I was always an idealistic youth, and even though 37 years later in doing this business, I'm still an idealistic person. I'm still a dreamer. Well, what I've learned over time in my life's journey is that what's really important is to do small things in a great way. Some of us were born and destined to do great things in a big way, but all of us have a chance every single day to do small things in a great way, especially in the hospitality industry where we work with people. Now, looking back on my young life, I actually have a photo to share with you right here. This is actually me in my late teens. I played in a rock band. Actually, this is me with my folk music trio. I was reminded of this when I recently watched the Bob Dylan movie, that the Bob Dylan biopic that came out just recently. But it reminded me that at that time, it was my dream not to be a rock star and have groupies and roadies, but I wanted to write that song that would change the world. The next Blowing in the Wind, the next Imagine by John Lennon, the next Bob Marley, One Love. But I realized looking back 36, 37 years later after doing this, I have touched 100,000 people in my presentations and classes and workshops. I've done 2,720 days of training. When I look back, what have I really done? I've traveled the world, 19 countries, teaching kindness. Teaching kindness. And that is no small thing. So I will finish with a quote from Conrad Hilton. I know you know there's Conrad because there's Conrad Hotels, and you know there's Hilton Hotels, and the Conrad Hotel is a Hilton Hotel, but there actually was Conrad Hilton, the founder of Hilton Hotels. He happened to be a very religious man. He went to Catholic Mass every day at 6 p.m. around the world whenever he could, almost every day of his life. And this quote sticks with me today. It has been and continues to be our responsibility to fill the earth with the light and the warmth of hospitality. Doing that every day, every guest, every phone call, every cover at the restaurant, every email you receive that you return with a phone call in sales, hopefully, or have a Zoom or Teams meeting, every person you pass in the corridors and the elevators under the porte cocheres, you have a chance to do a small thing in a great way. Be epic. So I hope you've enjoyed Epic Hospitality. Send me feedback if you like. This may just evolve from a webcast to our new half-day hospitality training that we'll teach at your location later this year. As we wrap up, thank you again for our sponsors, Track, TravelNet Solution, Travel Outlook, Premier Call Center. Please join us next month in June, Conquering Complaints Confidently. We'll be back in July with 10 practical action steps for securing more reservations. When we get back to August, we'll return to the topic of hotel, group, and event sales as we continue to rotate through. If you've missed our previous webcasts, they're all available on YouTube to watch. as a podcast. You can listen to the audio or also watch them on Spotify. Visit our YouTube channel for Kate's monthly training tip, which are about 5 minutes long, great for your monthly meetings. Contact us if you're interested in on-site training, private webcam training, conference speaking if you're planning a conference or event, or our mystery shopping, call scoring, and coaching services. And so thank you again for joining us. Happy Friday to you all in all the 5 continents around the world that joined us today for Epic Hospitality.